This whole time, I was lying.
Hey guys, American Super Soldier here. Though some of you may also know me as VenusianRapper. For those that are unaware, a couple of years ago I started to make trolling videos on Team Fortress 2. Mostly for my own enjoyment, but also to entertain a couple of friends as well. Today, I'm here to clear the air and address some misconceptions that have spread since my sudden disappearance. The main reason for my absence is one that many can relate to. Real life. The internet isn't everything, and everybody has responsibilities they need to handle. In my case, the biggest one of mine was the birth of my daughter. Naturally, I couldn't dedicate the same amount of time to content or online antics as I was adjusting to fatherhood. But fortunately, things are more stable now, and I was able to return to some old hobbies, such as YouTube. The main topic of today's video is on a video released by a YouTuber named Vorobey, with whom I've had past conflicts. In it, he tries to discredit me and drag my name through the mud with personal accusations. After watching his video recently, I felt the need to respond. Not just for myself, but because the backlash didn't just stop at me. It extended to people close to me, and that's where I draw the line. So before we dissect all of this claim by claim, let's first establish the context behind why he made this video in the first place, and why it's more personal than it seems. Back on April 11th of 2021, I discovered that minors were engaging in not safe for work conversations and behavior within Vorobey's public Discord server. As any responsible adult would, I called it out and warned that it could reflect badly on him. I had originally joined his server as a fan of his, like any other, sharing artwork and ideas, and even helped fix a false positive Trojan detection issue, something that he personally thanked me for. But when I brought up the not safe for work situation involving underage users, and how this should not be normalized in this environment, his response was to lash out at me, insult me, and ban me from the server. It was a clear attempt to bury the issue and protect his image. These are the same allegations he vaguely alludes to throughout his video, the ones he continues to deny despite evidence showing he knew about them. That incident was what pushed me to release a video explaining what happened, followed later by another video with further information gathered by others, including my ex-girlfriend Jane. Those events did happen, and Vorobey tried to cover them up. There are more details, pictures, and video evidence proof within a Discord server to preserve all the information, including an unedited recording of the April 11th incident. Links will be in the description. Since that event, Vorobey spent 2 years watching my online activity, building a case against me. Even though my videos on him didn't hurt his career in any meaningful way at the time, he still decided to attack me on a personal level, unlike anything he had done before. When people talk about VenusianRapper, a common claim is that I sought out drama in order to grow my channel. But this simply just isn't the case. It was a side effect of trolling, but I did that for entertainment, not for clout. Some of my favorite videos are the ones that got the least amount of views. Because views were never the point. It was all just about having fun on the internet. One serious accusation that Vorobey brings up in his video is that I am obsessed with PDF-philia, bringing it up too often in my videos. However, in the context of those videos, I was just reacting to what others were saying. Even as early as my first TF2 cringe video, I openly condemned dark humor involving minors.
Like, why would you, talk about chaining up a 13-year-old? Like, you're a pedophile, dude.
Because, yeah, no.
You said that child sounded pretty?
Wait, what?
I never introduced those topics, and I respond to them in disgust, which is context that Vorobey fails to provide in his video. Another case involved a video about a user named the Neon Spark, where critics claimed I muted Neon and edited the footage deceptively. The problem is I didn't know that Neon was muted during the call, and even the controversial clip itself, where Neon supposedly admits to being a PDF file, wasn't even part of the original 20-minute video I had made on him. It was uploaded separately as a short 30-second, clearly satirical post. There were also accusations that I made baseless grooming claims against users in Vorobey's Discord server, but the events I described, including the incident that had taken place on April 11th, were archived and recorded at the time. The evidence was, and still is, public. Another situation involved YouTuber El Maxo. I looked into reports of inappropriate behavior going on in El Maxo's server, but had decided to drop it after learning that El Maxo himself had already dealt with it. I was never trying to manufacture scandals, and was only trying to address real concerns that popped up at the time. Some have often accused me of casting myself as the hero and everyone else as the villains in my videos, but even looking back to my original videos, I more often portray myself as a troll than some sort of moral authority figure.
Oh, fuck you, I'm not getting a better mic for you.
Oh, you sound like a good old southern boy.
Look, a dead black man.
Hey guys, it's TF2 Whammo here.
When it came to important matters like exposing cheating, however, I did take a more serious approach and presented facts without the dramatics that my videos are accustomed to. Doxing accusations also followed. After my video on Neon, he had gotten doxed the same day, with many people linking the two events together. Other people pointed out that I had used a YouTuber's real name in the title. However, the only mentions of Neon's dox were ever in Vorobey's Discord server, the same place where I would later be doxed by people in there. And the real name that I had used was a reference to an old trolling video that had used the exact same title. I have never doxed anybody. My focus was always on what people did online rather than who they were offline. But in a YouTube environment where opinions outweigh facts, that distinction was lost, and misinterpretations of my actions have fueled almost the entire controversy. With all that established, it's time to look a little more closely at when the trolling ended and the real drama began. To start things off with this section, one of the main misconceptions here is what really happened to my old Twitter account. It's often speculated that the reason behind its deletion was because I had uploaded content involving underage characters or something of a similar ilk. This is not true. The real reason is actually shown in Vorobey's video itself. It wasn't about what I was posting, but rather what I was replying to on the platform. Things like my response to a user in which I made fun of their weight and their face, or other taunting criticisms and scathing insults towards other artists on the platform. These things led to a string of reports that eventually got my account taken down. These events were then used as evidence to support the idea that my behavior online was proof I was genuinely toxic, and that it went beyond just a persona. But let me be very clear when I say I don't believe in genuine toxicity or cyberbullying the way that most others do. If someone feels harassed online, whether that be through public posts or private direct messages, resolving these issues are as easy as pressing a button, whether it be through functions like muting or blocking, or even just turning off the computer completely. Because the internet is not real life, and it's up to each person individually how much they let the internet affect them personally. I know it's not easy for everyone to believe, but most insults, accusations, and drama are empty statements from strangers who don't know you personally beyond a screen. That being said, what I do online has always been separate from my genuine approach and meaningful interactions I have with people outside of the internet. The things I say and the way I act on the internet are performative and exaggerated for the purposes of entertainment and reaction. There are no real emotions behind it, but it also doesn't mean you're getting some raw, unfiltered take on who I am. It's just the way that I approach the internet. Next on the list is the infamous best argument on Team Fortress 2. And the clips shown in the video are of me having a meltdown during a Hightower session while arguing with another user. Since there's little context given in the video, let me explain what really happened. I joined a community server and started doing my usual antics of gaslighting and baiting someone into a pointless argument just to spice things up. The connection to the server wasn't great, so I figured I'd turn on my mic to have some more fun and see if someone out there would take the bait. The argument itself didn't even start where the recording started, as we had already been arguing for quite some time at that point, though eventually, through their own actions, the topic turned towards their sexual orientation, which I took advantage of. Now, I understand if someone sees this and finds my comedic approach and the things I say to be of poor taste, to which I would agree with them, they are. But a meltdown? No, not really. It just goes back to what I said earlier about strangers on the internet and empty statements, which include my own hateful ones towards others. I don't feel hatred towards others for things like their sexual orientation or race or anything like that, as they have no real relevance in online interactions. And unfortunately, playing an offensive caricature and having fun is not a meltdown. Like I said before, gaslighting and exaggerated reactions are part of the act that I perform. It's just a way for me to have fun in a game that's otherwise gone stale for me over the years. And there's a lot of reasons for that, including Valve and the community. So yeah, a lot of my presence on TF2 is boiled down to just goofing off and getting a few laughs. And to put things into perspective, not a whole lot of people are acting differently. If you can't beat them, join them. Now, why I didn't upload the video myself is really simple. It was already uploaded by somebody else. I thought to myself, why would I repost the exact same interaction just from a different camera angle? Because to me, it's like the substance was the same, there was just no real point to it. It was a free TF2 cringe that I didn't have to edit myself. With that out of the way, let's talk about my old commission sheet.
Lolifuta?
The idea of me drawing Lolifuta came from the TFTuber diss track many of you are already aware of. Mentions to the artwork created by TF2 content creator Starry Crow were made, something that he has always been open about doing. While I never mentioned Lolicon in the diss track, people saw his art and wrongly connected it with my own, to which fingers started to be pointed, calling me a hypocrite based off of an old 4chan post advertising content of a similar nature. But let's get one thing straight. While I had degenerate fetishes listed on that commission sheet for advertisement purposes, I was never commissioned to actually draw any of the things I'm being criticized for. Most of my art back then featured females with exaggerated proportions, and this is backed up by the art shown in the video. All of it that actually belongs to me features that type of content, as not only was it the type of content I liked to draw the most, but was what most of my clients had requested of me at the time. So the whole hypocrite angle, because I dissed Starry Crow, doesn't hold water, as our principles when it comes to art are very different. And if you still don't believe me, let me clarify. The art that Vorobey highlighted in his video was from an old commission series I did with a user who was writing a story. The character on screen was recovering in a hospital, and the others were OCs created to support him, because this is what the commissioner themselves requested I draw. This client was a pleasure to work with, and only ever requested safe-for-work pieces from me. There was no actual not safe-for-work content in this art series, just larger proportions and a cartoonish art style per their request. I'm not ashamed of that art, and I don't regret making it. However, I do resent how it was twisted and slandered, as it was coming from a place of someone just writing a story in his spare time, and I was just trying to help bring that story to life. So yeah, that's the truth behind all those rumors and screenshots. I've never tried to hide what I did artistically, as it's something I've always enjoyed doing. I stand by the fact that a lot of the noise surrounding me is just that, noise. misinterpretations, exaggerations, and whatever people fill in the blanks with to fit their own narrative. At the end of the day, I know what I posted, I know what I drew, and I know what my intentions were. And so do the people that requested and paid for artwork from me. You can agree or disagree with my approach, but if you're going to judge me, make sure that the information you're talking about is correct and that you have all sides of the story. Now with that all cleared up, let's move on further into the video. The first topic brought up here is a situation involving another TF2 YouTuber named Fat Magic, where I released a series of videos analyzing his gameplay footage and accused him of cheating. The first video wasn't something I was fully satisfied with, and with others assisting me and providing more evidence, I created a sequel video which was an hour long. Of the people among our group who assisted in reviewing footage were cheaters who also claimed Fat Magic was not entirely legitimate, pointing out commonalities in his gameplay style synonymous with those that try to hide their cheating. The third video released was the definitive proof from a spectator's angle, which showed a clear indication of cheating. However, the point here is that I did not make this series of videos with the intention of personally attacking Fat Magic. This started due to valid concerns and suspicions that were raised among discussions between me and other people who enjoyed his content. I wish to make it very clear that my intentions were not for seeking popularity or for clout chasing, as it is often falsely attributed to throughout Vorobey's video. There was thorough analysis and consideration before releasing those videos, unlike my other content like the TF2 Cringe series where all formality goes out the window. I believe we should all be able to tell the line that separates both sides. I can understand people have disagreed, denied, or straight up dismissed the allegations and claims made. However, the fact remains actual cheaters analyzed the footage, and the matter was decided by a consensus of multiple people, including those that were fans of Fat Magic's, but still enjoyed watching his videos even if they knew he was a cheater. I am not one to force my beliefs upon others, as I have always said that it is up to the viewer to make their own minds on the matter. Additionally, cheating within the casual side of the community has largely become normalized, which was the largest factor in me creating those videos. This desensitization has led to a noticeable lack of accountability or consequence, even in most blatant cases. As a personal example, a Steam account I was using to play Team Fortress 2 on engaged openly in cheating for over a month, with no efforts made to hide the gameplay. Despite this overt behavior, there was no punitive response, underscoring how little enforcement is applied in such scenarios. Only after I stopped changing the username and the account was mass reported did it stop. This context illustrates a broader point. If blatant cheating goes unpunished, it is highly unlikely that someone engaging in more discreet forms of misconduct, such as closet cheating, would be detected or addressed. The intent behind the videos in question was not malicious, nor were they created to provoke controversy. Rather, they aimed to highlight a persistent issue within the community in a transparent and straightforward manner. One of Fat Magic's strongest selling points alongside his skill and knowledge in games would be that of his charismatic disposition. The blending of his knowledge and pleasant demeanor make him have a wide appeal with the TF2 audience. But they are also talents which make hiding one's unfair advantages easier. However, there were no claims made that all his gameplay was cheated, as the ones most skilled at hiding their cheats are able to mix in their legitimate gameplay with interspersed clips of toggling their cheats on and off. This effectively would be the definition for closet cheating, by having proper knowledge and game sense in order to be able to make any third-party software blend in well with their gameplay without it being noticed, which makes them more difficult to detect than someone going fully blatant. That was my suspicion and the motivation behind those videos, that there was a chance there wasn't full honesty behind his gameplay, backed up with evidence, analysis, and feedback from others who were better educated in the matter than I. Never at any point did I disregard the value of his content when it comes to his persona or who he is as a whole. This sentiment just completely misses the entire point of that project. Now that I've clarified some misconceptions about that, the next thing that happened was Vorobey discussing my paranoia about his community post, where he hyped the upcoming project discussing the whole Fat Magic situation after the videos were released. Since my claims had caught the community at large off guard and word started spreading, he thought it was reasonable to give his feedback on the matter. However, what he decided to do is something rather absurd that I feel needs to be briefly touched on. Vorobey briefly shows the post that was made at the time in the community tab, where I made a reply calling him out red-handed, being aware of the things he attempted behind the scenes and how the situation between him and I was escalating further than Team Fortress 2 drama, getting into personal territory. The point of this section attempts to paint me as paranoid, but he admits later on in this video that my suspicions and claims made in that post were in fact true.
The truth is, his ex-girlfriend did message me back then. This whole time, I was lying about not having contact with her.
Vorobey, by his own admission, did get contacted, and there was indeed something going on. I clearly read your intentions and knew what you had planned in the background. So this part serves nothing more than just an admission to your audience that you lied directly to their faces. Due to the delicate nature of the information and internet trolling involving my personal life, I reached out to my friends and staff on Discord and explained the situation so they could hear what happened from me, rather than getting it twisted from someone else. Since Vorobey had already been spying within the chat, one staff member decided to leak this information before it was ready to be properly discussed like it is now. These same leaks are the numerous screenshots shown in his video. While he talks about my paranoia towards spies being within my community, the truth is that there would always be someone spying, and thus the thought became a joke within the server. It got to the point where it didn't matter whether or not it was true anymore, even though it's now confirmed that it is, because it's just such a pathetically silly thing to do as an adult. Given the nature of the situation and how quickly it got so personal, my suspicions had all been proven valid. This server is where the delusional announcement post of mine was made, where Vorobey claims I was coping over the series of events he was unfolding. While there are those who may remember the old server, for those that don't, it was much like my last Discord server. It was made as a place to hang out, relax, and talk to people about different topics that weren't just strictly TF2 related. The announcement itself was about how I was becoming a father to my firstborn child, and that because of this responsibility, I was going to be absent to focus on real life. Fatherhood is complicated, and not something one is ready to do at any point in time, but despite how hard it has been and how large a step in life this has been for me, there's no gift more precious to me than the love of my daughter. Due to the timing of the whole situation where this was exploding in the background for me, I made the decision to go absent from the internet for a while, to figure out our new life and prioritize what actually mattered for me. The whole point of the announcement that day was missed by Vorobey and any outsider at the time. This was my way of saying what I had already stated previously throughout the video. Real life and the internet are not things I like to mix together. The YouTube channel of VenusianRapper does not represent my principles nor priorities in life, as it was no longer just about me but my partner and our child, and establishing our new lives together. The character of VenusianRapper is officially retired or deceased. as I had already said my proper goodbyes back then and signed off the character with one last impression. What followed the goodbyes was the closure of the server in order to protect those who were associated with me and their private information, as once things were leaked, there was really no value left if I were leaving for my family. I recently made a new server as well, but for the same reasons, it has also been closed. While I had initially taken a passing glance at Vorobey's video as part of a birthday celebration, I had left a note for myself to digest and address everything properly, which is what I am now doing. In summary, this section titled Too Close to the Sun is an overly exaggerated title where a lot of talking is made but nothing of real substance is being said. Let's move on. This event happened about 10 years ago, and the truth about this incident is that my girlfriend at the time, who was not Jane, had been approached by another artist by the name of Babe, who had been messaging multiple girls and asking for topless pictures. She shared a picture with me that another girl had given Babe, and noticing that the other girl was active in the draw thread at the time of discussion, I censored the picture and left a snooty comment about not giving pictures like that out to people. It was then that she revealed for the first time that they were underage on the 18+ board, to which I promptly deleted the picture and apologized. She forgave me, but the two individuals mentioned before, Xander and Entity, continued to use this event as justification for posting my personal information publicly. Another individual involved was an artist named Bludgeons, who was Entity's partner at the time. I considered her a friend, but I eventually realized she was mostly acting as a conduit of information for the other two, enabling them to continue escalating the situation. Xander had been talking to me about who was the one to post pictures of my family from Facebook to Threads, and was blaming Bludgeons for it. Already knowing it had been Xander and Entity the entire time, I mockingly told him how I was going to hijack a train to her city and go off the rails of a crazy train by crashing it, all while pouring a chocolate milkshake on my head. I thought he would get it after the milkshake, but he didn't, and took it seriously even after I told him bluntly I knew it was him. Despite my attempts to navigate this with humor, after the crazy train remark, they attempted to get me expelled from college and were mass contacting my family. This led to my apology post, where I expressed disgust at how easily events were twisted and one-sided, even after I had acknowledged my mistake. I addressed the betrayal, harassment, and the importance of knowing when to step back, a courtesy not extended to me by the other party. My apology to them was genuine, though, as I sincerely felt sorry for what I had done to drive them to such animosity, being unable to resolve things between us peacefully. However, they continued to attack my family, and I eventually had enough of these people attacking them and left the community. Later, I joined the Antoons community, interacting with other members including Antoons himself, and even participating in a video through voice acting. During this period, I bonded with several female users and engaged in explicit conversations with them. All of the participants were consenting adults, and mutual respect was always maintained. Many of these people were wonderful individuals that I remember fondly, who I don't resent whatsoever, which is why I am not naming them to protect their identity. The most notable interaction involved a user by the name Pef. I initially met her after she complimented my art, where I cautioned her that the account they viewed was not safe for work. She replied that she was over 18, an adult, and drank alcohol, and over time our conversations became more comfortable, including suggestive comments from both sides. I was aware that she was in two separate relationships with moderators of the Antoons Discord, one in his early 20s and the other in his late 30s. The breaking point came when she complained about her relationship with the other moderator, specifically Sputnik, who pressured her into sending explicit photographs to him. I suggested that she could send them to me instead, as we were on better terms and our bond felt more meaningful to justify an exchange of content of that nature. This changed her mood completely, and suddenly started to claim she was underage. She then deleted multiple messages, including the one where she told me she was an adult, which led to a one-sided narrative when she posted multiple screenshots in a bid to have me removed from the server. Something to clarify is that I never stalked Pef. I did reveal that her identity was false and that she had been engaging in sexual conversations with other users, such as Devilly, the moderator in his late 30s. While initially hesitant, over time her facade collapsed, and she deleted her account and disappeared completely. The core of the problem was Pef's lack of honesty about their identity and age, which is what enabled these interactions in the first place. As I said earlier, I was not comfortable around this person until she told me that she was an alcoholic over 18. With them now having deleted their accounts and vanished, there's no way to know for sure anymore whether they were even a real person, or a simple catfish looking to cause disorder. But given their lies, deleted messages, and multiple partners at the time, the latter is more likely than the former. I find it really poignant that this section started off with the admission of lying not only to me, but to your audience when it was apparent that Jane had contacted you. I even offered to do an interview with most of what I was going to say now in this video, but we both know the point of your video wasn't to be objective and clear. Now, I never actually deleted my initial Discord server until this year, and had kept it as a little memento piece to look back on the fond memories I made with the people there. I find it unfair that a lot of decent people were attacked and harassed because of the assumption of the kind of character the server attracted, when they were some of the nicest people around. The reason I decided to kick everyone and eventually delete it was to prevent those nice people from continuing to be targeted. So, after saying our final goodbyes, I was the last one in the server still looking at a couple of funny pics from time to time. Still talking to friends that I've made there to this day. And as of this video, as I've said earlier, my most recent Discord server was deleted for the same reasons. People were being targeted and harassed there and had their personal information leaked. I'm strongly against anyone who thinks these types of practices are okay, and since certain people are unable to treat others' privacy with respect, I decided to prevent them from doing more damage by deleting the server, and their access to people more vulnerable than myself. Before diving into what I'm sure is what most people have been waiting for, I need to clarify that I never intended for Jane to be directly involved in any of them. Even when we spoke openly about our rocky relationship, I never incriminated her or tried to make myself look like a victim, and agreed with the things she had to say. I acknowledged my own mistakes and the things I regret deeply from our time together. But despite everything that happened, I still wish her the best in life, and I don't wish harm upon her. However, I can't ignore the half-truths that are scattered throughout her interview. It's something that I've unfortunately grown accustomed to in our time together. As correctly stated at the beginning of the interview, Jane and I first met around 2015 to 2016 on Draw Threads. Our initial interactions were playful bantering, but we quickly grew interested in one another and moved to DMs. We naturally began opening up and got to know one another better, drawn to one another through qualities that seemed complementary. She was a good listener, which I valued deeply, and I was honest and upfront, even if sometimes a bit too much. She knew I was flirtatious with other women, but she accepted me for who I was on the inside, the same way I accepted her. And it was that acceptance that won me over to wanting to start a relationship with her. Over time, when I learned more about her, and when we eventually started spending time together in person, I began noticing inconsistencies with her real life and what she said online. Out of respect for her family, I'm not going to divulge more sensitive information, but one example of these half-truths would be her appearance. She described herself as overweight, not obese, and even tried to reinforce that claim with carefully angled photographs that flattered her figure. I bring this up because that lack of honesty before fully committing to a relationship was an early red flag. But I decided to look past it because I thought we had potential as a couple and could help each other grow. She was initially very adamant about us going on diets and working out together, which I was very supportive of. I would join her in the diet plans she would start. I got us a black card from Planet Fitness, which I still have to this day. Anything I thought would help make a positive transformation and for her to be happy with herself. Her lack of initiative and unwillingness to change were what discouraged me the most, as she often claimed that I was unattracted to her because of her weight, even after I repeatedly reassured her that I loved her for who she was. What bothered me wasn't her body, it was her lack of will to improve, to remain stagnant instead of working towards something meaningful and fulfilling together as a couple. And that misunderstanding became a recurring issue. I stayed by her side because I truly loved her. But one thing I've come to understand is that her idea of what a relationship is supposed to be isn't reality. She treated me like an object, a trophy boyfriend she showed off to her friends and family, more than she ever treated me like a partner. Whenever I tried to discuss issues in our relationship, she would shut down or try to avoid the conversation altogether, unless it was an issue that was specifically bothering her. It felt like my feelings didn't matter to her. Whenever something was wrong and I asked about it, she'd bottle it up inside until it poured out into an emotional outburst. Consoling, comfort, and emotional support are what I believe to be cornerstones of any healthy relationship, and I did my best to provide that to her whenever I saw her feeling down. But in return, she rarely showed me the same care, only showing it when I explicitly asked for something like a hug. This lack of communication and not being upfront about her feelings or problems was something that would further weaken the bond between us, as communication is key in any bond between friends, family, or partners. I would also like to clarify that Jane was often emotionally unsupportive towards me and my endeavors, usually telling me to calm down at best to using it to justify one of her own emotional outbursts at worst. During these times of my own emotional distress, these often would not be because of her, but rather my own mistakes or even a loss in a video game, something I thought was common that a lot of people do, yet would end up being exaggerated and blamed for her own emotional distress. I never felt like she was next to me when it mattered, like the situation that's mentioned throughout the video over a rental disagreement. The entire story is that after confirming the price with the housing office while at the bank to finalize the check amount before the long drive up there, I get there only to be told that there's another $200 that's owed that wasn't mentioned in the call I had just made. After bringing this up and making comments about their unfair business practices, they threatened to have me escorted off the premises by security, at which point I left. I was understandably upset, but I did nothing more than raise my voice a little before leaving. I called Jane and told her I'd find a place even better, but she blew the situation way out of proportion. It's as if after that happened, she gave up completely trying. Despite finding alternative, more affordable locations convenient to job opportunities, nothing I found was ever good enough for her. I didn't hit anyone, I didn't fly into a rage, I was just reasonably upset because I felt they were taking advantage of us. There's a part in the interview where she says my dream was to have a YouTube career, which is simply a lie. I never said anything of the sort, and I have openly stated multiple times that I think having a YouTube career is stupid. Making videos for a career is retarded, G. I only ever enjoyed making videos as a hobby, like drawing, as we were usually confined to our computers. But the more I think about it, the more I realize she never really listened to me. But maybe it was just another way for her to ignore reality. While the degree of rage may be exaggerated, I can agree I have gotten unreasonably upset at video games before.
Yeah, you're right, it's fucking unintentional because the game isn't fucking finished because the controls fucking suck. I didn't fucking push myself, the game fucking pushed me. Like, what was that? I'm doing the exact same fucking pushing motion. You see me doing the same fucking thing, and it's just gonna fling me whatever fucking way it wants.
Sometimes I've broken a controller or a game disc, but I've only ever directed it towards my own material possessions, and never towards Jane herself. It was something I did to release some steam rather than bottle it up. She often attempted to escalate things by yelling at me to calm down or ask what was wrong with me, though every time I tried to explain to her how I felt or what was wrong, it was met with a dismissive tone. All I ever wanted was for her to listen to what I had to say, but it bothered her to listen because she didn't want to be my therapist. I had resigned everything I had known to be with her, and she had me physically isolated from anyone that was a part of my support group, while she had her entire family by her side to listen to all of her problems. This lack of communication between us would continue to bring hardship to our relationship. I was always honest and upfront about my poor emotional control with her, as it was something I was working on bettering myself. However, her reactions to these outbursts of mine often made them about herself, even though I assured her they weren't, only leading to further tension and complications in our already unstable relationship. Further on, there's not much more to add about her involvement in Vorobey's server situation, other than to clarify that she continued to find evidence of not safe for work activities involving minors in Vorobey's server of her own volition. It wasn't under my request, as we were both invested at the time. Although I had never asked her to continue digging and finding evidence of not safe for work activities involving minors in Vorobey's server, I'm glad that she did, as it helped bring this information to light. Keeping in mind what I've said up to this point, I never thought about what I had done as cheating, as the relationship between us had become non-existent. While we started as lovers, the chemistry between us, the things that made the relationship, such as our deep conversations and bonding activities together, slowly deteriorated and faded away, if they were even there to begin with. Things were not as one-sided as she would make them out to be, but I believe our personal relationship issues were things that should have stayed indoors, especially in regards to her family. However, since she had moved me out there to live with her, we were only staying with each other out of circumstance at that point. Yet it didn't stop her from playing into my fear of homelessness to force me into compliance. I lacked a proper support network and financial stability to be able to live independently, or be able to talk about the abuse I was taking from her, so I sought the company of other women to make me comfortable. This led to me developing more romantic feelings in others who made me feel listened and cared about, especially after the death of my mother, which led the situation between us to be even more stressful and dysfunctional. Ultimately, because of Jane's lack of care towards my feelings in the relationship, paired with the abuse and threats as well as the physical isolation from anyone I knew or could talk to, I tried to seek the comfort from others online that I didn't get from her. Thus, I cheated on her. Further along, she insinuates that my behavior towards women is predatory, but I've never done anything predatory in any interaction I've had. My conversations with others, explicit or otherwise, have always been fully consensual. I've never pressured or blackmailed anyone into doing something that would make them uncomfortable just to satisfy me, so I'm not really sure what she's trying to say here. Unfortunately, her account of what transpired that first altercation is less than truthful, with her leaving out important context or otherwise changing events that happened. It started late one night while we were driving to California, and the motel we had booked for the evening had changed the price on us right before we got there. Being reasonably upset at this, I decided I wasn't going to spend what little I had saved up for our trip on a place that was trying to take advantage of us, and started driving further down the road to another hotel, that allowed us to stay in a better room for a cheaper price. Jane had already been in one of her moods from driving, and was already argumentative with me, only getting worse once the motel situation happened. She began another one of her episodes, complaining about how tired she was, what I was doing wrong, etc. She was screaming her lungs out, disturbing the neighbors, despite everything being fine and getting us a new room, until I mentally couldn't take it anymore and had a breakdown. I yelled back at her that I couldn't take her yelling anymore, that she was embarrassing the both of us, and that I was already dealing with enough with the death of my mother, which was the entire point of why we were driving to California to begin with. I never put my hands on her or held her down, but I did break down and begged her to stop, if just for the night so we could sleep. Thankfully, she listened and quieted down, and that was all that happened that evening. I tried my best to stay calm, but she always found ways of making living with her unbearable. The second incident mentioned is where things did get physical between the two of us. We were expected to arrive at a family get-together over the death of her step-grandmother, and I couldn't have us arriving late to this important event for her family. Jane was having another hysterical fit, to which I scolded her that now was not the time, and that we needed to go now. She didn't take what I said well and started for the bathroom to lock herself inside, which is what she would usually do when she was upset rather than talk through it and calm down. Knowing she would lock herself in there for hours and that her family would blame and chastise me for being late, I decided to try and prevent the door from closing by placing my leg between the door and the frame. It was at this point she had begun placing her full weight on the door to try and close it, crushing my leg in the process. I yelled in pain that she was hurting me, and begged her to please stop, but she ignored my cries and continued to press harder. I had only one last resort to get her to stop her from breaking my leg. So, with the gap in between the door, I fit my arm through and I hit her to get her to stop. This got her to recoil and roll away from the door, which allowed me to free my leg. After which, I barged into the room and angrily yelled at her that we still needed to go and that her family was expecting us. When I saw her clutching the area I had hit and sobbing, the adrenaline subsided and I froze in fear upon realization for what I had done. My first thoughts were of how my life was over at that point, as I had not only struck a woman but was now thinking of how her family would react to this situation, no matter how it started. I became emotionally distressed and retreated further into the bathroom closet where my mother's ashes were, as well as Jane's gun her parents gave to her. All I could think about was how guilty I felt for hitting her, and the repercussions this would have if she used it as a means of blackmail against me, something she eventually followed through with. My life had never been great, but it was this moment that was the lowest for me, leading me to believe there was no coming back, as everything fell apart. I felt trapped more than ever, either having to endure her family's violence against me or being further stuck in a relationship with someone who no longer cared about hurting me anymore. Holding that gun was the most alone I'd ever felt in my life. Once Jane realized her gun was in the room I was in, she was no longer in hysterics as she attempted to talk me down from what I was going to do. I interrupted her to beg to let me leave the relationship, citing how she was hurting me physically now and didn't even care, and how I couldn't handle being with her anymore. She agreed to ending the relationship, and even promised not to tell her parents that I hit her, to which I put the gun down. Officially, that's when our relationship ended. Something else that needs to be stated is that I did not abandon my mother's ashes. I was physically prevented from retrieving them upon receiving multiple death threats from her family if I ever returned. Wanting to avoid physical confrontation with her and her family, I decided to leave all my material possessions behind, most of which Jane kept for herself, such as my Xbox and drawing books. There's nothing more that needs to be added about the mother of my child, other than that in the beginning Jane was supportive and understanding of the two of us, However, after she logged into my social media accounts and began reading through all of my chat histories, she went ballistic and started messaging everyone from my account, raving, and even called the two of us while we were out driving and screamed insults at us, before leaving multiple menacing and threatening emails. This is the point where she started making things public and was talking to Vorobey about her side of the story. And that's where my side of the story of my relationship with Jane ends, or at least as much as I'm comfortable with sharing publicly. It wasn't one-sided abuse as she would make you believe, but rather two people in an unstable, toxic relationship that just didn't work out. This was both of our first real relationships that spanned several years, and we were both just woefully unprepared for this journey. We weren't just mentally unprepared for such a relationship, but economically unprepared as well. The combination of her lack of will to improve, paired with my poor emotional control, created a toxic relationship environment where both of us had to suffer through constant arguments and ultimatums. In the end, the lack of proper communication and the decline in chemistry led our situationship to its natural conclusion. An end to an unsustainable situation. In conclusion, as much as I didn't want to make this video, I knew I had to say something in response to the numerous lies and slanderous accusations Vorobey has asserted about who I am, and used to try and ruin my life. I am not seeking forgiveness or absolution for the things I've done, as I've long since moved on from these events and have always been open about them. However, there are numerous other TF2 YouTube personalities who are friends or associates of Vorobey, who have been a part of his server since April 11th of 2021, who continue to support and reward his inappropriate behavior towards others, including children. Vorobey has continued to lie and deflect from his involvement with minors in not-safe-for-work situations, and his stalking and harassment of those he considers to be his opposition. Based on what has already been shown, I believe there is a serious risk that this behavior could continue if it is not properly addressed, and he is held responsible for his actions. I strongly encourage people to take this situation seriously, and to help raise awareness so that others are protected from this behavior, especially those who are younger and more easily influenced by popular community figures. As for me, I accomplished my dreams and became the father to a beautiful little girl, one who I love and cherish every day. I wish I could share more about her with others, but because of everything that's happened, I don't feel safe posting her face among these creeps that infest Team Fortress 2 as a whole. There is no greater joy I feel than when I see my daughter happy, and I will continue to protect that smile for as long as I live, and keep her safe. I'm most likely not going to make videos anymore after this, as I've lost interest in this hobby and wish to pursue other things, but I appreciate each and every one of my fans who has enjoyed my content all these years. I hope you all have had a Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year. And as always, thanks for watching. Goodbye.
Yeah.